All right, everyone, we got to talk about an interesting phenomenon. It's not just in the wake of Charlottesville. It's more maybe now than it has been in the past, but it's been going on literally for years at this point. And I'm just talking about, in regards to my own content on this one. It's kind of like with religious people. I get people all the time telling me I should join their religion because, oh, don't you want to be sure you won't go to hell? Or Islam is the one true way. Mormonism's just great. It's like a sense of community. Oh, why don't you adopt Buddhism? Enlighten yourself. You can achieve, a non-reincarnating, very, very stagnant, boring state if you want to, I guess. And I get this. I've got this for years. It's not a new thing. Even back when I had like a few hundred subscribers, I used to get people doing this. Since I stopped talking about religion quite so much, it's petered off a bit. Now I talk mainly about current events, politics, and stuff. So every day, basically, I get people on the left and on the right telling me that I ought to ideologically side with them. It's not always the far left or far right. Sometimes it's garden variety liberals and conservatives saying that I should speak out in support of something that they happen to believe in. And they almost always seem to use the same reasoning. Oh, look at the other guys are scary. So some liberal comes to me and says, oh, well, these conservatives, they're like mild bigots and they don't care about the poor, so why don't you become a liberal? The conservative will say, oh, these liberals want more of your money and PC bullshit, so you should call yourself a conservative. And the far right will come along and say, these communists want to kill all white people, so you should stand with us. And the communist will, or socialist, if they're far out there, they're not like a Bernie Sanders socialist, a democratic socialism. They'll come to me and say, oh, the Nazis are just so vile and bigoted and, they're going to burn Jewish shops, so you should stand with us against the Nazis or something. I'm not joining any of your movements. I have my own ideological views. I'm supporting both sides insofar as they're speaking and neither side insofar as they're acting out scenes of violence. How about that one? How about I'm an American? People now for years on both of these so-called sides have attempted to project on me either what they believe in or what they believe against. That is, somebody who likes my content in a general sense. If they're on the right, they'll say, oh, he's dog whistling to the right and just not being forthcoming like he's alt-right or something. And somebody on the left will say, well, he's basically, classical liberal, or say he's ultimately with us and just isn't really open or forthcoming about it. And if they don't like me, they assume I'm on the other side. So somebody who's on the right, they'll say, oh, he's just a leftist cuck in most essences, pretending to be part of the right, which I've never said I was, by the way. Somebody who's on the left will say, oh, well, he's basically a Nazi sympathizer somehow, even though I've never actually made any content that sympathizes with Nazis. And it's all wrong. You're projecting. You're doing exactly what people have done with Trump. Some business Democrat looks at Trump and they say, well, he's a populist. He stands for the working class. I'm going to vote for him. He's not a bigot. He's one of us. He's ultimately still a business Democrat. And they project upon him that that's what he is. Somebody who's a conservative, they say, oh, Trump is one of us. I know he can't talk about it openly, but he really wants to deport everybody and will have, whiteness or something. Somebody who doesn't like him on the right will say, oh, well, he's a sellout and he's actually far left. Look at what he's doing, number 1, 2, and 3, and he's not one of us. He's not doing anything about these lefties. And somebody on the left, of course, who doesn't like him, they say, well, he's a Nazi or at least a bigot or kind of, quasi-bigot or something. Just ignore the fact that he disowned David Duke 20 years ago, and so we must fight against him. And it's all projection. From false, manufactured, totally artificial sides that don't even exist. The fundamental difference between the most virulent communist and the most virulent Nazi is scant. The behaviors and the end result are fundamentally the same. It's just which kind of abuse are you endorsing. Why would I want to endorse any abuse? I want them both to be able to speak as much as they want. In fact, I want them to speak. I want fanatics to speak more. I want fanatics to come out. I don't care whether it's online or in the public square. I want them to rant until they're red in the face because I'm convinced the average person is going to take one look. at somebody who is scarified with swastika tattoos, who shave their head and just is strung out on meth, they're going to reject that message. They're going to look at that idiot, greasy communist, and they're going to reject their message too. I want these people to talk. I don't want to censor them at all. When the government steps in, it's the worst thing that can possibly happen. The government says, oh, well, no more free speech for you. Oh, well, that's great. Now they're underground. They're still speaking to people. It's just there's no public discourse against them because the public no longer sees them speaking. So they don't see the problem. It's underground. It's hidden from the normies. So they can't reject it. They don't see anything to reject. Oh, what a wonderful thing the government just did. How lovely. The government is your friend. Yeah, the government's your friend. It solves all of our problems readily. No, the government doesn't solve problems. It makes problems. The media writing its exposés on the rise of the far right, the rise of the far left. Most of these articles are dishonest. Most of them are true. I saw they tried to label last night, and I think they rescinded a lot of this stuff. Jack Posobiec there. Trump retweeted him. Now, Jack Posobiec is holding like peace rallies and shit. He's not associated with the alt-right. In fact, they hate his guts, in all honesty. But for some reason, they labeled him alt-right when Trump retweeted him. Suddenly, he became a Nazi, even though he has actually sparred with these people before. I guess it's the fact that he calls himself New Right in general. Like, he's somewhere on the right, therefore he must be a Nazi. That's like saying that somebody who's like an Elizabeth Warren fan is a communist. That's not the way it works. When people tell me to join some group, and I always apply this same logic, I look at if they're giving me any falsity, any sort of false dichotomy, any sort of, they're trying to fuck around with my mind a little bit. It's almost invariably going to be the case if they're religious. In political discourse, it can sometimes be more honest, and I'll tell you why. We have to understand something. People who believe in communism, far leftism, Marxism, whatever, they fundamentally, unless they're just LARPing or they're shilling, they fundamentally believe in the nobility of what they're fighting for. We can look at that and say, well, they're wrong, their arguments are bunk, their ideas are crazy, but they believe in them. They have a conscience, very violent, given over to violence maybe, but they've got a conscience. Identitarians fundamentally are functioning the same way. They have screwy beliefs. They fixate maybe on a white replacement or something. But they do believe in what they're saying. So sometimes when these people approach me and say, well, you should join us against this scarier other side, they actually believe what they're telling me. They're not trying to lead me on. They're just wrong. But other times they are trying to lead me on. I assure you, you're not going to be able to fool me into joining some Nazi movement or some communist faction. It's just not going to happen. As long as you're speaking, you've got my defense at your disposal. Whether you can be further left than Marx. You have the right to speak in this country. I don't care what you're saying unless you're inciting violence or defaming people. The same goes for someone who's marching around jackboot style and hailing Hitler. Yeah, I think you have the right to speak freely. I don't have a problem with that. Once you start bombing things, driving cars into people, beating each other with ball bats, throwing punches, attacking police lines, this seems to be getting more and more common. Yeah, that's not speech, that's action. It's a little bit different. And so the speech of these groups is protected. Their actions aren't. As far as holding rallies, that's an action, but it's a form of expression. In and of itself, it's not violence. It can devolve into it. It seems that it often does at this point. But I'm not going to join. Like, you're not going to see me marching around anywhere. If I were marching on D.C. or anything like that, I would be waving the U.S. flag. I wouldn't be waving the hammer and sickle or the swastika. It would be the U.S. flag. Hail Columbia would be playing, not the fucking Nazi anthem, not the Soviet anthem. Ave Columbia. And I wouldn't be arguing in favor of suppressing either just the left or just the right. I'd be arguing in favor of them both having discourse, hopefully not devolving into violence because they're not under enough social stress to become violent generally. We need to understand this. These groups get violent because they're under social pressure. I would even say, when people on the right or the left are engaging in tactics like, when Antifa shows up and they try to unmask him so they can get him like fired or something, That just puts that makes the person more of an extremist. The same is true of these people like the Nazi rally, when you're trying to get them so that they lose their jobs. Okay, now you've taken maybe one of the remaining facets of stability in their life. You're proclaiming them to be nuts. Okay, you've just robbed them of, maybe the only platform they've got left where they've got stability and normalcy, as we would generally call it. What do you think then happens? They're not going to repent of that. They're going to feel misused and abused, and they become more extremist. You end up sending the moderates fleeing that were actually preventing that group from being like totally way out there. The same thing would happen on the far left. You've now made a much more violent core, actually. It's a fairly simple concept to understand. You can engage in such behavior. Like, there's no law against getting these people's identities and talking to their workplace. There's no law against that. It could be, depending on how you word it, it could be harassment, but not clearly. It's kind of a slight gray area. But it's not the greatest strategy to employ. It's arguably just as bad as the government getting involved. Because when they do, it will be lopsided. Due to social pressure on one side or the other. Due to political pressure on one side or the other. But I go beyond that political pressure. I feel absolutely no pressure whatsoever to join a side, because these two sides are fake. It's a false dichotomy. It's like Democrats and Republicans every year. That there's an election. Democrats come out and say, yeah, oh, we make mistakes, we're human, yeah, just ignore our million scandals, but those Republicans want to take your health care. They want to throw grandma off a cliff or something. The Republicans come out, they say, yeah, we make mistakes, we're not perfect, yeah, sorry about all these scandals on our side, but these Democrats, they want to disarm you and take all your money or something. But it's fake. There are more ideologies than, hey, I'm a Democrat and hey, I'm a Republican. No, there's also more ideologies than, hey, I'm a Nazi, Hitler, and hey, I'm a communist, Karl Marx, or something like that. Now, you got to get past this. Whenever you see one of these dichotomies being presented to you, it's being presented to you for ultimately dishonest purposes. So then a very small but very vocal group of very far left or far right individuals has managed to convince some people, hey, there may come a day pretty soon when you have to stand next to us in the trenches because otherwise these other dudes are going to abuse you. But here's the secret. You want to know the secret? The secret is if either of these groups actually took command of the United States, everyone would end up abused anyway. It wouldn't even matter who had won. Okay, you have a white America, but everyone's being abused. What's the point of being white if you're being abused? It's pointless. Oh, you have no wealth inequality in the United States anymore. The bourgeois are gone. Okay, everyone's equally miserable. That sounds great, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. I think these ideologies have been tried before. I don't think they do too well. I think under the best of circumstances, there are significant problems with them. I look back at the world in the past, and I say, well, wouldn't it be nice if we were like the United States was meant to be? Instead of having a bunch of bullcrap interventionism and censorship and proxy wars and all this other goofball stuff that we've got in the post-Gilded Age especially, and certainly the post-Atomic Age. Wouldn't it be nice if we actually had freedom in this country for a change? I think that was kind of the founding goal of the country. Then some people, both right and left, by the way, have told me this. Oh, that's naive. We'll never have that. Well, that's funny. So you're saying that it is reasonable to suggest that we will become a communist nation, but not that we could revert to a form we were already in, which is, loving liberty primarily. Okay, that doesn't make sense to me. You're proclaiming on the other side, so-called, that it's perfectly rational that Nazis will rise up, they will deport all minorities, and everything will be white forever. That's sane, but it's insane to suggest that people would simply stand for liberty. That's what you're telling me. You believe these things on these two sides. My friends, you are so indoctrinated. I don't think you realize how little the average person is going to believe your argument. 99% of the population will reject it. Now, you're marketing yourselves increasingly because of the violence on the other side. And that's, for you, I guess that's all well and good. But it's also a dishonest tactic because there's a third way. The third way is, hey, both of these groups have the freedom to rant. We have the freedom to ignore them. Government doesn't need to be involved. The people are smart enough to handle it on their own. Everyone should have equal rights, equal possibility, not equal outcome, of course. It's a communist tenet. That's the way forward. Not join fasci haircut mode or join, people who march around in Soviet uniforms. I notice these people, they keep waving these insignia from foreign shores. There are very few U.S. flags at these rallies. Where are all the patriots to show up and just stand there and, play some patriotic music, wave the U.S. flag, and just watch these people and chuckle at them? Because they're going to beat on each other. The police are going to beat on them. Some Antifa members will get arrested. Some Nazis will get arrested. Because they get violent, the rest of them, they'll get bored and they'll wander off. Have you forgotten the fact that actual sort of red, white, and blue patriotic Americans outnumber these two groups like 1,000 to 1? Well, then you shouldn't be concerned enough to want the government to come in and censor people. It's a non-issue. Or tech firms. Yeah, these corporations, they're so beloved. We've got a weird situation right now where people who are essentially National Socialists and people who are essentially communistic, who both supposedly are antagonistic towards corporate power, are trying to get corporations to dumb down their adversaries. And I'm not supposed to see the hypocrisy here either. I'm supposed to pick a side. No, I don't think I will. I think I'll be on my own side. I keep getting people also fear-mongering. Fear-mongering is another propaganda tactic. They'll say, oh, pretty soon Antifa will come to your house. Ooh, spooky. Oh, Nazis are going to break down your door. Ooh, spooky. Well, I'll take care of that if that happens, but that doesn't mean I want you defending me. I can do that myself. Why would I need to join like some mafia syndicate in order to be defended from the other mafia syndicate? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, we'll protect you from these Nazis, but you have to give up basically everything because we're going to transition totally away from capitalism. Like, you won't have any income. You can go work in the salt mine or something. Okay, sounds good. That's what one side's offering me. This sounds wonderful. Oh, we'll protect you against these communists, but anyone you've talked to that's not white, we're gonna deport them. Number one, we're probably still gonna abuse you. Like, we won't have free speech unless it's pro-white speech or something. So yeah, but we'll protect you from the communists, and then we'll be National Socialists. So you'll be at liberty kind of, but we're gonna make you march around and join a militia or something. Okay, that sounds wonderful. What a great opportunity, I'm sure, for me and for the country. No, I don't think so. Thank you for the kind offers on both sides, but I'm not interested. In other words, I'll talk to people who label themselves identitarian or communist, and we can have a good conversation. But that's talk. It's not action. And some of these people don't even believe this shit. They're like LARPing. Maybe the people that are actually physically there throwing punches. Okay, I'm going to assume that they believe in what they're saying. Online, a lot of it is shitposting, on both sides. And you know how I know this? Because I've talked to people that supposedly fall under both umbrellas. People that do the Hitler shitposting or the Stalin shitposting. I have a conversation with them, and they open up because I happen to be Styx Hexenhammer and say, I don't really fucking believe in that stuff. It's just anti-PC. I'm trying to offend people. Well, that's fine. That's freedom of expression. If you want to troll, again, I have no problem with that because people do it all the time in my comments area. And it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell who's an actual communist and who's basically pretending, or they just have the tanky thing going on. It's hard to tell who is an actual, like, National Socialist or racialist, and who's just sort of pretending to piss people off, or even to troll other Nazis sometimes. Sometimes people pretend to be that which they want to target. It's like when people pretend to be hyper-religious. Now, they're like a total atheist, but they pretend to be a zealot in order to piss people off. They're hoping that it'll turn people off from zealotry. And so it kind of, or they're religious, they pretend to be like an atheist, and they make like really, really obvious stereotypical arguments as though they were a neck-bearded atheist. I've seen this happen too. I've done it myself. On chat rooms like an ICQ, I'd go there and I'd pretend to be a religious zealot, to make fun of religious zealots. And it was entertaining. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people that do this. Yeah, I had one person who mistook the Roman flag in the background for a symbol that I was like an Italian fascist or something. It's an appreciation for Rome. It's an appreciation for ancient history, basically. A dead empire that no longer is, but we've still got the ruins. Those are cool, and I like archaeology, so sue me for that. Or people that assume that I have long hair, so I must have like leftist tendencies or something. No, not really. Yeah, maybe on the drug war. I don't support, yeah, I think the government should get its hands out of everything. Government makes things worse. Government hurts race relations. Partners with the corporate media, that hurts race relations. Why would I want the government involved in anything at this point? That's about all. Peace out.